sure that we know that we'll be spending money wisely. But yes, there is at the moment it is helpful to have a wide range of opinions about exactly.
Good morning, Secretary of State. It's great to see you back here at the CLA's Rural Business Conference. You've just delivered your speech to the CLA's delegates. What did you tell them?
Well, it's great to be back at the CLA Rural Business Conference, and one of the things I wanted to emphasise is that there is a bright future for the rural economy, for food production, for forestry, and for all of the enterprises that make our countryside both so beautiful and also the generator of so many great jobs. And that bright future rests on both investment in productivity and technology, but also grasping the opportunity to enhance our environment. And that's something the government is committed to paying landowners and land managers better for.
Can I ask you about Brexit? We've seen in the papers this morning warnings about the consequences, a worst case scenario in the event of a no-deal Brexit. A vote on the Prime Minister's deal with the EU has been scheduled for the 11th of December. Do you agree, just to be absolutely clear, that a no-deal Brexit must be avoided?
We should do everything we can to avoid a no-deal Brexit. Of course, the Prime Minister's deal provides us with a great opportunity to have tariff-free and quota-free access to EU markets, and at the same time to design an agricultural policy in our interests, and also to manage a migration policy in our interests. So I think it is the right outcome. And I think that, of course, this country can cope with all sorts of challenges, but people should be in no doubt that certainly in the short term, leaving the European Union without a deal would be particularly challenging for our economy, and particularly challenging in particular for food production.
In the event that we do end up with a no-deal Brexit, what measures will you put in place to ensure that rural businesses are prepared for that scenario?
Well, we're working with rural businesses at the moment and with food producers more broadly in order to make sure that we can keep supply lines as flexible as possible, in order to make sure that there's mitigation there. If there's any particular sector that is poorly affected, or any other sector that indeed can see new opportunities, then DEFRA and the Treasury stand ready with financial and other support.
Our theme today is inspiring investors. How can more rural businesses be encouraged to embrace a spirit of entrepreneurialism and invest in their own businesses?
Well, I think one of the great things is that the CLA is showcasing how some of those risk takers have reshaped what we think of as the rural economy. And I think that it's important that we learn from those pioneers. It's also important that government gets behind them by making sure that you have a pipeline of skilled workers who can contribute to the rural economy, and we're doing more there. And also infrastructure matters, and that means looking at the whole planning system in order to support rural businesses, and critically embracing the ideas that the CLA have put forward, for example on rural roaming, in order to make sure that we have better digital connectivity across the rural economy.
The Agriculture Bill gives you the power to introduce measures to increase productivity in farming, but it's actually fairly quiet on what those measures should be. You've talked today about a food strategy that will be underway next year. What actually specifically do you think those measures should be?
Well, I think that they can be everything from the better management of slurry and irrigation through to big changes like the adoption of artificial intelligence, machine learning and big data, through to potentially new ways of considering how we can improve productivity through gene technology. I think there are a range of things that we can do. What we want to do is to work with the industry and also to work with agri-tech companies to ensure that we're investing in the sorts of technologies and indeed also the sorts of perhaps smaller scale capital investments that can really boost productivity.
And finally, can I ask you, what is your message to CLA members today?
Thank you. The CLA does an amazing job in making this countryside, our countryside, which we all value so much, beautiful and alive. The CLA does a superb job of stewardship in making sure that the land that we love can be passed on to the next generation in an enhanced state. And at the same time, the CLA shows a degree of leadership in supporting business and enterprise that so many other organisations can learn from. So under Tim Brightmeyer and his team, the CLA are doing a brilliant job for rural Britain, and I want to thank them.
Secretary of State, thank you so much.
Thank you.